The Nicaraguan government continues to provide support to regions hit by hurricanes ETA and Iota. Burkina Faso's incumbent president, Rochi Kabore, is ahead according to early results following Sunday's general election. The United Nations Children's Fund plans to send nearly 2 billion doses of a COVID-19 vaccine to low and middle-income countries. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. And we begin in Nicaragua, where the government continues to provide support to those regions affected by hurricanes ETA and Iota. The National System for the Prevention, Mitigation of and Attention to Disasters remains deployed in regions such as Metagalpa, the southern Caribbean coast and the Mining Triangle. The institution, under orders of the executive, is providing roofs for homes damaged by the harsh weather conditions and guaranteeing food supplies of affected families. Following the same guidelines, the Nicaraguan Army is guaranteeing assistance in different parts of the country. The government of Honduras reported that at least 4 million people were affected by the impact of Tropical Depression ETA, followed by Hurricane Iota. In its latest report, the Secretariat of National Risk and Contingency Management detailed that nearly 740,000 people were affected by the devastation sparked by ETA, while more than 3 million suffered the impacts of Iota. Authorities explained that the heavy rains and strong winds damaged more than 25,000 houses and also warned that they do not rule out that the numbers of people affected by the natural disaster will increase as the days go by. Venezuela's electoral authorities announced Monday that the training of regional electoral boards will be carried out from November 23rd until November 27th, as set out in the electoral calendar ahead of the December 6 parliamentary elections. The training will be conducted by the National Electoral Council and the National Office of Electoral Organizations. Meanwhile, nearly 294,000 identity cards have been processed by the Administrative Service of Identification, Migration and Immigration in the lead-up to the parliamentary elections, in order to ensure that all voters have the necessary ID to cast their ballots. The president of the service, Gustavo Finscano, noted that the institution is working to approve electronic ID cards with QR codes to be used for the long term. 14,400 candidates from 107 political and indigenous organizations have registered to stand in the parliamentary elections that will determine the 277 members of the National Assembly. In the midst of the political and social crisis that Guatemala is experiencing, the Congressional Board of Directors issued a message to the nation stating that the approval of the 2021 budget had been suspended. The president of the legislative body, Alan Rodriguez, assured that in the interest of safeguarding the governance of the country, the Congress decided to suspend the discussion and approval of the 2021 budget, and it will not be sent to the executive branch. Rodriguez was accompanied by 16 lawmakers from different blocs allied with the current government. According to local media, the message was recorded from the headquarters of the Ministry of Defence. However, the opposition pointed out that this manoeuvre is illegal and inappropriate.
At all times, I raise my arms. I think there are images of that.
They burned that here because the president doesn't help them. The people are in need. They are suffering. They are dying of hunger. Who is going to help them to eat if the president has all the money?
The Mexican Public Prosecutor's Office confirmed the discovery of at least 113 bodies inside an unmarked grave in the municipality of El Salto in the state of Jalisco. Prosecutor of the 113 bodies found, 30 were identified by their relatives, while the rest are being held by the Medical Forensic Service in hope of identification. The prosecutor for missing persons in Jalisco, Blanca Jacqueline Trujillo, reported that excavation works are underway in another grave in another municipality of the state. In Chile, health sector workers announced they will continue to conduct indefinite national strike action due to lack of response to their demands from the government. Health professionals are striking to demand the fulfillment of the commitments made by the government to the sector, among them the payment of bonuses and adequate salaries in the face of the ongoing economic crisis. Demonstrators have also denounced the lack of resources in healthcare centres, as well as the precarious working conditions of personnel on the front line of the COVID-19 epidemic. The government of Honduras reported that at least 4 million people were affected by the impact of tropical depression ETA followed by Hurricane Iota. In its latest report, the Secretariat of National Risk and Contingency Management detailed that nearly 740,000 people were affected by the devastation sparked by ETA, while more than 3 million suffered the impacts of Iota. Authorities explained that the heavy rains and strong winds damaged more than 25,000 houses and also warned that they do not rule out that the numbers of people affected by the natural disaster will increase as the days go by. In the Dominican Republic, employees and owners of bars, nightclubs and other nightlife establishments have demanded economic support from the government in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sector workers rallied in the central flag square of the capital Santo Domingo, stressing that lockdown measures have seen them out of work for more than 8 months. They called on the authorities to include them in economic plans that would allow them to cover their expenses. They also called for the reopening of establishments and committed to comply with all the prevention measures to avoid the spread of the novel coronavirus. According to the Electoral Commission of Burkina Faso, Incumbent President Rochi Kabore is leading, with just 3 voting districts declared on Monday following Sunday's general elections. An undisclosed number of troops were deployed as voters turned out to elect the president and members of parliament, with President Rochi Kabore widely expected to be re-elected. According to reports, hundreds of thousands of citizens were unable to vote on Sunday because their polling stations remained closed for fear of attacks, as groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State operate across vast areas of the country. The Electoral Commission reported that a number of polling stations for the presidential vote were closed after threats were made against them. Commission President Newton Ahmed Barry later said that between 300,000 and 350,000 voters, of a total of about 6.5 million, had not cast their ballots due to the security threats.
We are waiting for the results, but it looks like President Roch is in the lead and will win in the first round. That's really good for peace. If we have to start the campaign again, it will cause us a lot of problems. That's my vision of things. Well, there will be no challenges, because the Burkinabés are very tired. Yes, very tired, because of insecurity. There have been deaths. We have really suffered a lot, so if the result comes out, I hope they will all accept it. Several polling stations were closed because of the insecurity, but overall it went well.
According to reports from Yemen, the primarily state-owned Saudi Arabian oil company, the world's largest oil producer, was attacked on Sunday. Spokesman for the Yemeni Armed Forces Brigadier General Yahya Sarri stated that Yemen's army had targeted a distribution station operated by the Saudi Aramco oil company in the western Saudi Arabian city of Jeddah with a missile. The Yemeni army said the attack was in response to the Saudi-led coalition's ongoing airstrikes against Yemen and warned of more attacks if Saudi Arabia does not halt its aggressions against the poorest country in the Arab world. On Monday, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh condemned Arab countries for holding talks to open embassies in Israel.
We call on the international community to make Israel abide by all agreements and push for a political process in accordance with the references of international laws and the United Nations resolutions under multilateral international sponsorship. We are saddened by the news that Arab countries are holding talks to open embassies in Israel, especially since these countries do not have embassies and diplomatic headquarters on the lands of the State of Palestine that they recognize.
This Monday, China denounced the deadly attacks targeting civilians in the Afghan capital of Kabul after at least 10 people were killed and 51 others wounded on Saturday.
We condemn the attacks targeting civilians, mourn the victims and extend sympathy to the bereaved families and the injured. China will continue to firmly support the Afghan government and people in their efforts to combat terrorism and safeguard national stability and security. We stand ready to work with the international community to help Afghanistan achieve peace and stability at an early date. China calls on foreign troops to withdraw from Afghanistan in an orderly and responsible way, make sure terrorist forces cannot fester, and contribute to Afghanistan's peace and reconciliation process.
Staff at China's biggest city, Shanghai's major international airport, face mass testing after a small outbreak of COVID-19 in the city was linked to several cargo handlers, with plans underway to vaccinate high-risk workers. Life in China has largely returned to normal following strict testing and lockdowns, but there have been a series of sporadic local outbreaks over recent months. Shanghai reported 6 local infections linked to the airport this month, with most of the cases in the past few days. More than 17,700 people have so far been tested, and results have come back negative on over 11,500. Frontline cargo workers will be given regular tests in the future, and those in high-risk jobs will also be given priority for COVID-19 vaccines. Iran's foreign ministry has said it's willing to engage in diplomatic talks with the United States, despite the many crimes that Washington has committed against the country in the last 4 decades.
The future of relations between Iran and the United States is not simple, as America has committed repeated crimes against the Iranian people over the past 40 years. These are serious crimes, plus other crimes that they specifically committed. The martyrdom of General Soleiman is in this category. The list can neither be cut down nor forgotten. It is natural that between 2 members of the United Nations, there are well-thought-out exchanges within a known framework, but this does not mean that Iran will forget this list of crimes.
The United Nations Children's Fund plans to send nearly 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines to low- and middle-income countries. UNICEF, along with the Pan-American Health Organization and the International Air Transport Association, informed major global airlines of the expected capacity requirements and discussed ways to transport the vaccines by 2021. UNICEF plans to deliver COVID-19 vaccine doses to 92 low- and middle-income countries as part of the COVAX mechanism, a global initiative to cooperate with vaccine producers to ensure equitable access to immunization. The operation will be the largest and fastest the UN agency has ever undertaken. According to results from a large-scale trial, the coronavirus vaccine developed by the UK's University of Oxford is highly effective at stopping people developing COVID-19 symptoms. Interim data suggests 70% protection, but researchers say the figure may be as high as 90% on tweaking the dosage. There are 2 results from the trial of more than 20,000 volunteers in the UK and Brazil. While the results are seen as a triumph, they come after Pfizer and Moderna vaccines showed 95% protection. However, the Oxford jab is far cheaper and is easier to store and get to every corner of the world than the other 2. As such, it's expected that the vaccine will play a significant role in tackling the pandemic if it is approved for use by regulators. The United Nations warned Monday that greenhouse gases, the main driver of climate change, hit record highs last year and have continued climbing this year, despite measures to halt the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Meteorological Organization said lockdowns, border closures, flight groundings and other measures to rein in the coronavirus crisis had indeed cut emissions of many pollutants and greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. But the UN organisation warned the industrial slowdown due to the pandemic had not curbed record concentrations of the gases that are trapping heat in the atmosphere, raising temperatures, causing sea levels to rise and driving more extreme weather. WMO Chief Petteri Talas said the lockdown-related fall in emissions was just a tiny blip on the long-term graph and that a sustained flattening of the curve is urgently required.
That we are reaching new record levels of all greenhouse gases, and that is extremely important if we consider how the greenhouse gases should actually change in the atmosphere in response to the promises made by the countries and commitments made by the countries. We've seen one of the highest growth rates in our carbon dioxide. It's higher than 10-year.
France's former president Nicolas Sarkozy went on trial this Monday on charges of corruption, becoming the first French former head of state to stand accused in a dock and risking an end to a career tainted by legal woes. Sarkozy, who has vowed to vigorously contest the accusations of bribery, was himself present in court in Paris but did not make any statements. Only one other president, Sarkozy's political mentor Jacques Chirac, has faced trial after leaving office, but because of ill health, Chirac never appeared in court for his conviction in a fake job scandal. Charged with bribery and influence peddling, Sarkozy risks a prison sentence of up to 10 years and a fine of €1 million. The trial is expected to last until December 10th. The French government has pledged just 1% of its €100 billion recovery plan for underprivileged areas and promised transparency in use of the funds.
We have already been able to announce to the mayors the mobilization of the recovery plan in favor of the political districts of the city, and we have taken this commitment to raise €1 billion, that is to say, the 1% requested by the mayors directly in the political districts of the city through several projects. In terms of urban renewal, we have both a very good rate of completion of the second urban renewal program, since we are at 80% of the signed agreements out of a budget that our majority has increased from 5 billion to 10 billion and 400 agreements already signed. But the elected representatives tell us that there is a complementary need to improve the existing operations and to be able to finance others, and it is a discussion that we are ready to have with them.
Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin said he was hopeful that the outline of a Brexit trade deal between the United Kingdom and the European Union would be agreed by the end of this week. The Prime Minister made the remarks during a tour of new warehouse infrastructure at Dublin Port, designed to undertake drastic new customs and regulations checks in the new year as a result of Brexit.
So a deal is necessary. And a deal is in the best interests of the United Kingdom, of Ireland and of the European Union. So I would be hopeful that by the end of this week we could see the outlines of a deal, but that remains to be seen. It's down to political will. On top of COVID-19, the last thing we need now is a no-deal Brexit.
On Monday, Russia regretted the official withdrawal of the United States from the Open Skies Treaty of the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The multilateral pact seeks transparency in arms control. However, the agreement loses all its viability without the participation of the United States. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said in his daily press conference that Russia considers this treaty to be a very important instrument to strengthen mutual trust in terms of arms control, and warned that the United States' decision will bring about negative consequences. US President-elect Joe Biden will nominate veteran diplomat Antony Blinken as his Secretary of State and Linda Thomas-Greenfield as Ambassador to the United Nations, moving forward on his campaign pledge to restore the US as a leader on the global stage with reliance on experts. Blinken and Thomas-Greenfield will bring extensive foreign policy backgrounds to the Biden administration, while providing a sharp contrast with President Donald Trump, who distrusted such experience and embraced an America First policy. During the campaign, Biden severely criticised Trump's go-it-alone foreign policy and pledged to recommit to NATO and other global pacts, while promising to tap experts to fight the COVID-19 crisis and other problems at home. At a town hall meeting in October, Biden said America First has made America alone. And the Trump campaign has distanced itself from a lawyer who made dramatic claims of photo fraud at several media events. Sidney Powell claimed without evidence last week that electronic voting systems had switched millions of votes to President-elect Joe Biden because he was sponsored by communist money coming from Venezuela and Cuba. On Sunday, the Trump campaign issued a statement saying Powell was practicing law on her own and was not a member of the Trump legal team, while also stressing she's not a lawyer for the president in his personal capacity, despite her appearance alongside Trump campaign lawyers Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. A tweet from President Donald Trump earlier this month explicitly named her as part of the team, referring to her as one of his wonderful lawyers and representatives. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.